Welcome to the Insurance Wise Guys podcast. My name is Mike Lewis, insurance agency owner of Archibald Lewis Insurance and your insurance wise guy. On today's episode of Know, Like, and Trust, we have Cullen Bryant of Premier Signs. All right, everyone, turn back the clock with me to 1984. Wendy's restaurant is asking everyone, where's the beef? Michael Jackson's hair just caught on fire, and somewhere in the backseat of a race car in southern Wells County, Cullen Bryant was born. Cullen is an owner, creator, and head graphic designer for Premier Signs in Bluffton, Indiana. Cullen Bryant, how's it going?
It's going well. And that race car bit in the back seat's more accurate than you would probably know. I just about came out before we got to the hospitals.
That is awesome. So before we get into the Premier Signs, let's talk about that. You came from an automotive background, race cars, pretty solid automotive background. Tell me about that.
Yeah, family owns Bryant's Auto Parts, which is a junkyard on the south part of the county. I grew up there. I would get off the school bus there, so that was a big part of my life up until I went to college, really. But yeah, so working at the junkyard, growing up around cars all the time, go-karts, dirt bikes, all that kind of stuff. And my dad was a really good race car driver who won a lot of races, a lot of championships. And then I started to get into it when I was a teenager as well. And raced go-karts, raced full-size stock cars before I had my license even. And so racing's always been a big part of my life.
That had to be like a dream, honestly, as a boy. In a junkyard with all the things that you could get into and do and run. I mean, that had to be actually awesome.
It was pretty cool, yeah. There was lots of things to get in trouble with doing there. Mm-hmm. And I found new ways to get in trouble all the time.
So you say that after you grew up in that area, though, you went on to college. What did you go to college for? Where did you go?
I had originally planned to go to a trade school, be a mechanic. Like the only thing that I wanted to do was work on race cars. Mm-hmm. And I had a scholarship to Lincoln Tech. I had an apartment picked out in Indianapolis, and kind of at the last moment changed courses completely. And we had a art instructor or some kind of a rep from a college come in talking about graphic design.
In high school?
In high school, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they came into my art class. And I was also really good at art as well, very creative always. And so they came into the class and talked about the different fields that you can go into with a degree in graphic design, and I was converted that moment.
You were sold. Cars are done.
Yep,
and
I'm done with race cars, and it's time to be a graphic designer. So I went to school for that, got a degree.
So where was the college then?
Fort Wayne.
Yeah.
I went to Fort Wayne, and while I was in school, I got a part-time job at a sign shop in Fort Wayne, and worked there for almost 10 years, for a long time.
Okay, so cars aside, then let's do a little name dropping. Where did you go to work, either in college or after college? I don't know if it was the same place, but it was in this type of a business?
Yeah, yep. So
okay.
I worked for High Tech Signs in Fort Wayne. I worked there while I was in school. It was supposed to be just a seasonal part-time job, and I did a good job doing that kind of work. So I was brought on as a part-time associate while I was in school, and then it turned into a full-time position.
So how long did you work there then, High Tech?
Almost 10 years.
No kidding.
Yeah. So I started there when I was 18 or 19, and really quickly rose up through the ranks, and I think I was probably 24 or 25, and I was the plant manager.
No kidding.
Yeah, and did that for about 5 years before I left.
So were you brought on as an apprentice in there? I mean, did they show you more of what was going on?
Yeah, so like I said, I was just supposed to be a seasonal temp worker during their busy season, and I did a good enough job then that after that busy season was over, they kept me in a part-time position.
Okay, so 10 years now. Flash forward, it's 2018. You get the opportunity for Premier Signs. Tell me how that got started and what made you want to take a leap like that? I mean, that's a big step.
It was a big step. It was a real big step. I had a pretty cushy office job at the time, and made that leap. It wasn't my idea, believe it or not. So a couple guys came to me who were interested in starting a sign company. They specifically wanted to focus on vehicle wraps. That was kind of their main thing that they saw a need for in the area. And they knew that I had experience with that. A couple of the guys were my friends and my cousins. And they said, hey, if we're going to do this, we know the right guy to talk to. So let's talk to Cullen about this. And I met with them a few times, kind of told them the ins and outs of the business, things to stay away from, things that they should work on. And they decided then and there that they'd rather have me as a partner than somebody helping to consult with them. And we started it up.
So at that point, though, you're leaving a nice, secure job for an unknown. And that had to be scary, though, right?
Well, it was, but I was trying to do double duty at the time. So for the first 6 months of Premier Signs, I still worked my full-time job. Then I would leave there, come to Bluffton, and then work on the sign shop nights and weekends.
Which is tough.
Which was tough.
Yeah.
It was very difficult having 2 jobs.
Yeah.
So I did that for about 6 months till we got it up and off the ground, and haven't looked back since.
So 6 months into it, you felt that you had enough business going on that, hey, I can make this permanent.
Yeah, and that was always the goal.
Sure, yeah.
And at that period, it was towards the end of the year. It was in December, I think early December, and it was time to make that change.
Mm-hmm. So today's businesses, they're judged on 2 things. They're judged on their Google reviews and the signs on their business. That's what I think.
Okay.
Because you don't want to do business with somebody with a bad Google review, and if their business sign out front looks like they hand painted it, like they're having a yard sale, you also are going to judge them, and you don't want to do business with them. So let's talk about your thoughts on that and the types and styles of visual business signs that you see. And what I mean by that is, how do you feel that impressions are given based on a business sign?
I think you nailed it. The Google review is probably the first thing that people take in consideration, because I want to know who I'm doing business with, so I'm going to check them out like that. And depending on what I see there, that's going to skew my view going into it before I even talk to that company. And the next step of that would be the signage aspect of it, and that gives you the professional feel that you're a branded and a legitimate company, and people will be much more likely to do business with you if you've got that professional appearance. And that's really step 2 to it.
Mm-hmm. So there's all kinds of signs out there too, obviously. I know there's a story out there, and I go through a lot of business type books, but there's a story out there that talks about a man getting started in his business, and he invested $10,000 in product inventory to sell, and he invested $1,000 in his sign. And he said if he had to do it over, he would have invested $10,000 in his sign and $1,000 in inventory, because by that time it was too late. Okay. So I've heard that often, but talking about that, I mean, there are so many different kind of signs out there. So take a business, even a local business. Do you see more of one type than another? Do you see just placard signs that are on a building, light up signs, box signs? I mean, what
Sure.
are you seeing?
I see a good mix that's a 50-50 split, basically, between the box style sign cabinet, essentially, that's either mounted on the building or that's in some kind of a monument that is backlit. It's got like a polycarbonate face on it that lights up at night, but it's also visible during the day. That's generally either by the road or mounted to the building itself. And then the second would be what's known as a channel letter, which is 3-dimensional in shape, and it's contoured to the actual logo. Mm-hmm. So it's a pretty fair split between those two. And then I would say on the lower end, places that are just getting started or places that don't have much of a branding presence would be just a flat sign mounted to the building. Okay.
And then give me a range for people, and I know that's tough, but give me a range rather than having a 4x sheet of OSB that you hand painted Mike's stuff for sale here.
What would a range of a cost be from something small like that to all the way up to a lighted cabinet, or even beyond that, maybe a digital readout type?
Sure.
Just range of prices.
Yeah, so it is a little hard to talk about price because included in that price, I got to think about a labor rate and what all services I'm providing. So in that sign, am I designing you a logo because you're a new business and you don't have a logo?
Mm-hmm.
Am I putting the layout together for you, or are you going to send me something that's basically print ready? And how difficult is your installation? Is it up high in the air? Is it something I can get to on a ladder? But generally on the lower end of things, just a flush mounted sign on the side of your building would probably be in the $500 range, depending on some of the services that I'm providing for you. The sign cabinet and the channel letters are pretty equally priced, with the sign cabinet being a little bit more versatile because that's a sign face and a panel that you can remove and update frequently. Whereas the channel letter set, once you make that and shape everything to your logo or your text,
You're stuck with that.
So
Okay.
those would run anywhere from $2,500 to probably $5,000, depending on the size. And then going upscale from that to like an LED digital display that's programmable. Those can start anywhere from $10,000 to $15,000, and then easily go up to $30,000, $35,000, depending on the size.
Which are really, really cool. But maybe if you're starting out in a business and Mike's stuff for sale is probably not going to go that route.
Yeah, I don't think they would go that route.
Probably go with the $500 one.
Probably.
So you mentioned something there in that conversation, though, about logos, and that brings me to the next part of what I wanted to talk to you about was branding. So branding seems to be a big thing with businesses these days. They want to be recognized for their logos, even their font, their colors. Talk to me about branding and how you help with that and with logos in general.
Sure. So the branding and the logo designs just all part of a graphic design service that I offer. So that might be a very simple logo. It might be putting a layout together for you for even your website, or a point of sale system, or the signage that I'm providing for you. So those branding guides is something that I generally provide as well. You talked about people being specific with colors, with typefaces, that kind of stuff. Generally, if you get a logo from me, I'm going to put something like that together for you. That way you know the complementary colors with it, exactly what fonts I've used on it, and if you are going to do anything yourself, then you've got that guide that you can sit down and look at and make sure that you're going to be in coordinate with everything else that I've produced for you.
So that is actually very cool, and that's something that you can do for an existing business, not necessarily somebody that's just started, but maybe somebody that wants to upgrade their logo. And again, you're saying that you can put together a guide for them that would spell out that this is the particular type of color that you're using, this is a particular type of font that you're using. So that's a big deal. That's a big deal for a lot of companies out there. So that's really cool. Something else that you do that is really cool is vehicle wraps and trailer wrapping. So not only service vans get lettered up, but whole cars. I've seen whole cars going down the street. It looks like a moving billboard. Talk to me about if you have any information on what an ROI would be for something like that. And what I mean by that is, take for instance a billboard. A billboard could stays in one spot and could cost you between, I'll be conservative, $400 and $800 a month for that billboard. Relay that to me into a ballpark cost of what maybe a wrap is, and I know wraps are very expensive, but I'm thinking about that in conjunction with what a billboard would cost, and now you're hitting multiple areas, multiple people.
Yeah, the really cool thing about wraps is that people are going to view them exactly where you're at, where your services are provided. So in a small town like this especially, people are going to see you out and about, and those are the clients that you definitely want to attract. If you're taking a road trip somewhere, that may not be your target audience nearly as much as this, but the more views that you can get in town especially would be critical. And the cost for that, again, is dependent on the vehicle. The square footage of material is the main thing that goes into my pricing for something like that. So I would say a half wrap would start at about $1,500, and whether it's a big truck or a trailer, that can quickly go up to $4,000 or $5,000 for a full coverage, full color wrap, and it's just cool.
It is cool. It is cool.
I love doing them. I don't get to do as many of them as I would like, just because the price is a little off-putting at times. But in comparison to the billboard, the wrap is something that's going to last you multiple years. It's a one-time cost, and it'll get you just the same amount of traffic as a billboard will.
Right, and I know several different trailers that you have done and cars that you have done that I've noticed because of that, and it is very cool, and that's why I wanted to bring that up, because that cost might seem high and out of range for some people, but if you were putting it into perspective of, hey, I have a billboard and I'm spending $6,000, $7,000, $8,000 a year to have that billboard, because most of the time you are signing up for a year contract minimum on something like that. This is something that you're going to have for the length of the time that you have that car, and probably in good position at that.
Yeah, the vinyl for wraps is typically rated to last anywhere from 7 to 10 years, depending on the climate that it's in. But it's a one-time cost. So you're not spreading the cost out like you are on a billboard, but in the end of it, it's going to be cheaper than the billboard.
So talking about wraps, let's go with a car, because that seems to me like a much bigger project. When you do that, let's say I want my truck wrapped, and a year later I'm like, ugh, that business failed. What happens then? I mean, can it be taken back off, or what happens then?
Yeah, it can absolutely be taken back off. The type of vinyl that I use comes off pretty cleanly as well. It's not going to leave a bunch of adhesive residue behind. And kind of an added benefit to that wrap is it's going to protect your paint job underneath there. So, rock scratches, scuffs, that kind of thing, it's going to protect your original OEM finish. And typically I can peel off a panel, a door, fender, something like that. It takes me about 15 minutes to pull off.
Okay. What is it? You said it lasts about 7 years. Does the sun fade it out? Does it crack it? What happens mostly?
It will fade a little bit, yeah. I use usually a gloss finish on my wraps. That gloss will become a little bit dull and pitted. But it doesn't really crack. Like vinyl lettering will crack a little bit just because of the nature of how it's cut out. But our wrap doesn't generally crack because there's so much vinyl there. There's no stress relief points like cut out vinyl lettering does.
Now again, I've seen some of your wraps, and they look super cool. I'm just curious, and just want to know if you can tell me, how do you take a flat sheet of vinyl and get it to curve in on all these different contours of different vehicles? How does that even happen?
I can't tell you that.
This is a trade secret. This is a trade secret.
No, it's pretty simple. So you have a big sheet of material, you cut it out, and generally I use magnets to kind of hold it in place while I'm getting it positioned. But to really contour it over those shapes that the vehicle is, I use heat. So whether it's a heat gun or a small propane torch, I heat it up till it's stretchable, and you just kind of bend it and work it over the material and massage out any wrinkles.
Let's say I get somebody that vandalized my smiling face that's on the side of my truck now.
Okay.
Can an area be cut out? Can it be fixed? What do you do there? Do you have to redo the whole panel?
I could try to put a patch on it, but whatever is cut out from beneath that vinyl is going to be noticeable. The vinyl is thin enough, it has to be thin enough to stretch over the panels like that you'll notice any kind of imperfections on the layer that's behind the vinyl. So people come to me a lot asking for stuff that, their truck's in primer, or they've got a dent that they want to try to cover up, and a wrap's just not going to cover that up. It's going to show any imperfection behind it. So yeah, I could put a patch on it, but it'll look better if we recover the whole panel. Yeah.
So if somebody gives me a mustache, let's just redo the whole panel, or keep the mustache.
Or keep the mustache and grow a mustache.
I like that.
And then it looks accurate.
I like that. So this year started a little tough. I mean, you're a year and a half into your own business here, but this year started a little tough. Tough for a lot of people. But I saw that you pivoted during that time, and you introduced additional products. So talk to me a little bit about how scary that was when it started, and some of the additional products that you have, that you offer. Not necessarily even the ones that you added during that time, but just different products that you offer that people might not even know about, that a sign and graphic designer can make for them and that they need.
Sure. It's something that I battle every day, though, is people saying, I didn't know you did that. I didn't know you could do that.
Yeah.
And generally, I mean, if there's any kind of signage related thing that you have, any kind of graphic, I'm going to be able to help you with it. And I struggle with how to communicate that and how to broadcast that. But yeah, the beginning of this year was tough. It was tough for everybody. And in the spring, when the shutdown happened, I mean, the phone just stopped ringing. And when you're making products and services for people, and there are no people who want your stuff, it gets tough. So you have to find new ways to serve people. And when the business to business dried up, I had to look elsewhere. And that looking elsewhere was business to consumer, and trying to find something that was easily repeatable, that wasn't a custom one-off project every single time, and something that people would actually want to buy. So I tried a few different things. I think probably the cornhole was probably the best idea that we'd come up with, and got a really nice vendor for cornhole sets, and was able to put custom graphics on them that we designed in-house and produced, and offer kits like that. And it's really what kept us afloat when everything else dried up. So very thankful that I had some people around me that were able to give me those ideas and able to put them into fruition.
So custom cornhole boards, I mean, you can put anything absolutely that you want on something like that.
Anything that you want
within reason.
That is not trademarked.
Trademarked.
Yes,
okay. Talk about trademark for instance. What does that mean to the average consumer customer? Now, I'm not talking about a business at this point, because that would probably be different, especially if they held a copyright on something. But what does that mean for a guy like me that wants something made? What does that mean?
So that means when you come to me and say, hey, Cullen, like, I know you do cornhole sets. I'd love something that says Harley Davidson on it. I'm not going to produce it for you.
Okay.
The risk associated with using those copyrighted and trademarked logos are easy cash. It's an easy cash grab, and lots of people still do them. I'm just not one of them. I don't think it's worth the risk, and really the only reason then you're buying my product is because it has that Harley Davidson logo on it, and I don't feel that it's right for me to earn based on somebody else's intellectual property.
I see. Yeah.
So yeah, I stay away from it. There's lots of other places online, especially that you can get them at, that are bootleg, if you will. But to me, it's just a gray area that I'm not comfortable crossing into.
But still, so within reason, if I wanted my face on a cornhole board, you could do it.
Absolutely, yeah. I can hook you up if you want your face on there.
So, and I might. There's a lot of other products out there that you offer too, and again, people just may not be aware of them, and I just really wanted to touch on some of the other little things. I know you do banners. Banners could be for an occasion. You could do yard signs, where multiple listing type signs. Anything like that. Real estate offices, real estate agents.
Yep.
All that is signage, but it can even go back to typical yard signs. You could create anything individually that somebody might want.
And I do that pretty frequently too. People will come and say, it's my son's 5th birthday. I'd love to have a banner to hang up in the house that looks, really, really cool. So I do that pretty frequently. The yard signs are the same thing, like so-and-so just turned 50, honk. And it's something I do every week almost, it seems like.
So that would be a big area. Graduations and birthdays, anniversaries, all of that would come into play there too. So I know you take great pride in your work, and not only do you try to focus on customer service, but just how you can provide the best opportunities for those people. But I understand you're growing and you're looking to bring somebody else on. Talk to me just a second about what you're actually looking for, and why someone might want to apply for that.
That's a good question.
Yeah.
So yeah, I am looking for somebody else to help me. It's been a one-man show for a while, and I need some help. That person would be doing a variety of different items, anything from some production work, running some of the equipment, the printers, the plotters, the laminators, that kind of stuff, to even doing some customer service work, communicating with clients, doing quotes, scheduling when jobs were going to be completed, and then doing some basic installation work with me on site.
So, I mean, I would find that very appealing. If anybody like yourself is just starting out and they have that creativity in them, it's almost, to me, it's almost like you're offering an apprenticeship at that point. You're saying, hey, come in and I'll teach you what I know.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That was exactly what I put in my ad so far, is that I'm going to teach you everything I know about the industry, and let's grow this thing together.
Yeah, awesome. Hey, tell people how to get a hold of you.
Two ways to get a hold of me would be going to premiersigns.com, sending me an email to info@premiersigns.com, or giving me a call at 888-518-2498.
Cullen Bryant, Premier Signs. He says, if you're not first, you're last.